the Jefferson County Code of Ordinances in light of this application and then provide some comments. I previously sent a letter outlining those comments, but I want to emphasize several of those comments tonight. After review of the Jefferson County Code, there are several reasons why the commission this board should not recommend approval. The first one is in section 112-58. Your code requires a rezone application to contain, quote, a detailed site map showing all existing improvements on the property, utilities, and significant observations within the area of the proposed zone change. Close quote. That hasn't been provided. All that I've seen provided is an aerial photo with a general depiction of the property. There has not been a detailed site map. I think a detailed site map would not only inform this board, but also the commission and also those that are interested in the project. Second, and perhaps most importantly, the property does not meet the requirements of either an R1 or an R5 zone. I want to quote from your ordinances, section 112-203. This is specific for an R1 zone. Quote, the residential zone is established to promote the development of residential uses located on the edges of the incorporated cities or other developed communities or areas where urban sewer and water services are either available or have the potential to become available in the near future by reason of their inclusion in service districts, city service areas, or are adjacent to those areas or areas of city impacts, close quote. The property in question is not adjacent to the area of city impact. There's a gap between the lower property, but the upper property, there's quite a gap between the two. I think it's also notable that I believe in the staff report, the mayor of Roberts submitted a letter in opposition to this project expressing concerns with their water situation and any ability for them to provide service to this particular parcel. Roberts is also located on the east side of I-15. Their municipal boundary, I believe, does not extend on the west side of the area of city impact. And that's important because later on in section 112, it says, quote, use of this zone is appropriate in areas designated by the comp plan as residential, which this does fit. But then there's an and is inside or adjacent to a city area of impact. Adjacent generally means bordering. This property does not border the Roberts city area of impact. And for that reason, this should not be recommended. Similarly, the R5 zone has this similar requirement that it must be adjacent to a city area of impact. Again, it doesn't meet that criteria. Thirdly, the purposes of the adjacency requirement, there's a lot of reasons for it, but your code in section 112-203 expressly contemplates access to urban sewer and water services. Again, that's not present here. That's of increasing importance. The Idaho legislature has amended several statutes recently mandating the use of canal water for secondary irrigation, but also there are interesting requirements on how proposed water systems close to city impact areas need to be designed. And we have no information on the planned water use. So just with that lack of information with provisions in the code that I've cited to, we do not believe that the proposal meets your code. And for that reason, on behalf of my clients, would ask that the commission recommend denial of the application. Thank you.
Speaking against Court Albertson. Either one.
My name is Court Albertson. 579 north, 2800 east. I'm right next to this. I won't affect those people who own it because they don't live next to it. They're miles away. I've been Roberts 60+ years. Grew up in Roberts. We moved out of town 2001. So we could farm, raise cows. Well, 15 years ago, we went to New York, took some kids on an American Heritage tour trip. We were their chaperones. While we were there, I remember saying, if we don't build a fence around these people, they'll kill to get where we want. To have what we have. There's a reason we live there. It's quiet. We don't have to make room for these people to come. They've screwed it up where they're at, and now they're all moving out here. Want to mess it up for us? Might be selfish, but that's the way it is. To me, there's a reason all these people live out there. Because it's quiet. That's about all I have to say. We'll sit here and wait for my 5 minutes to. That's what. That's probably all I'm gonna get out of this. We live in this so-called impact zone they created. I'm told. I raised cows in there 25 years. The next thing is they'll want my cows. They stink, they smell, they get out. You have cows that are gonna get out and they're gonna die. There's 2 things you can't. Keep them happy. Step out my back door, I don't want to see the neighbor. They're just standing looking at me. That's why I'm there. It's a sad day for me to have to come here and defend them. It's our way of life. Those who already live in the subdivision don't know what I'm talking about. As long as I'm here, they won't get my ground. For this. We're fighting over the water. Sure you've heard, but we still keep poking holes in the damn thing, putting straws in another house. We just pump all they want to irrigate their grass, in their garden. No restrictions. Yet we can't irrigate the way we need to. Farm. It's so much fun farming right now. I can't hardly tell you. So. Thanks for your time.
It's your time. Thank you. Speaking against Andrew Mickelson.
Andrew Mickelson, 2782 East, 500 North. Thank you for your time tonight and for listening to me here. I live just 1 mile south of this proposed development. My family farms in this area. This is my community. Haven't been here as long as Wes or any of the others, but my kids are going to school there. This is my community. I want to start by saying something important. I support growth in our community. Growth brings opportunities, and I want to see Jefferson County thrive. I also strongly support private property rights. People should be able to use and develop their land. And I'm not someone who says, not my backyard. Development is part of a growing community. But development has to be done right, in the right places, and it has to meet the same standards every other landowner must meet. It has to be safe, it has to be feasible, and it has to protect the rights of the people who live around it. And in Jefferson County, in this area, growth should first be directed towards the city of Roberts, where sewer, water, and municipal services already exist. That's responsible planning. That's how we avoid rural sprawl and protect agricultural land. This proposal simply is not in the right spot. I'm asking you to deny the request to change Ag 20 zoning to Ag 1 and Ag 5 for 4 clear reasons: water table, septic feasibility, farmland protection, and precedent. The water table here is extremely high and unstable. Septic systems require several feet of dry, unsaturated soil to function properly. This ground does not have that, or at least portions don't. Moving from Ag 20 to Ag 1 or Ag 5 would multiply the number of septic systems by hundreds of %, putting wastewater in the soil that cannot safely absorb it. When septic systems fail, and the soil conditions here make that likely, contamination goes straight to the aquifer that all of us rely on. That is a public health risk and a long-term liability for the county. My firsthand experience with the adjacent ground shows septic is not feasible. Right next to West there, just south of the south parcel, that ground has constant sub. Crop struggle. Every year I planted potatoes there, we've lost trucks and crop carts that seem feet deep because of the sub moisture. I can't hardly farm it. And it's right next to that proposal there. This is not hypothetical. This is not a theory. This is the real condition of the soil today on ground that shares the same water table and soil profile as the proposed development. Because of this, before any zoning change is even considered, the applicant should provide a full hydrological study, a percolation and septic suitability study, and potentially a DEQ review of wastewater feasibility. We already have documented soil failure on the adjacent parcel. You cannot approve zoning without proving septic can function safely. Also, this is productive, actively farmed ground. Once it's developed, it's gone forever. I know that's come up over and over again, but that's something else that we need to be protecting. Last thing really though here, zoning changes absolutely do lead to development. I've heard it be claimed that changing the zoning doesn't mean it will become a neighborhood. With respect, it's generally not how zoning works. Once you approve Ag 1 or Ag 5, it's basically legally declared that this land is appropriate for higher density residential use. And at that point, nothing meaningful can stop subdivision applications. We all know how we got where we are today. Past variances and exceptions created the patchwork problems that we're seeing all around this property. Approving another one only repeats the same mistake and accelerates rural sprawl. In closing, I support growth. I support private property rights, and I'm not someone who opposes development just because it's near me. But growth has to be in the right places, and development has to meet the standards that protect the health, safety, and property rights of everyone in this community. This proposal sits on high water table ground that cannot support dense septic systems. It sits next to a city, Roberts, that already has the services needed for this type of development. It sits on productive, actively farmed ground that should not be fragmented. And once that zoning changes, the county will not be able to stop the development that follows. For all these reasons, for the long-term health and safety of our community, I respectfully ask you to deny this rezone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Here to speak against Ann Albertson. speak clearly into that mic for me.
Albert Singh, I live on 579 North, 28 East, Ports. We are right next to this proposal, but still change. I'm really against it because of the things that have already happened in the last few years with the new subdivision going in right next to us. We've already had to downsize our cattle herd because we lost the pasture there. Do people not want to eat anymore? It just feels like everyone is against farming. This is wonderful farm ground that we would love to have and love to farm, that they're trying to put houses on. And it's heartbreaking to me to see that change. As I drove a swather across the freeway today, I got to thinking about driving through that road that I usually do going out west, right in front of all those houses. It's really intimidating when there's a lot of traffic and you're driving equipment. And we drive back and forth west to east every day in big equipment. And it's so intimidating. But mostly I am worried about the peace that we do enjoy with our family. We don't have to worry about bothering anybody. Our neighbors, sometimes our cows get out, but they're all really good about that. They like to feed. We share our feed with our neighbors. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, I have you down.
I
for
wasn't
two.
sure if there was like.
You can't speak twice.
I don't need to.
All right. Would the applicants like to rebut anything that's been said? Please come forward.
Jed Louder, 487 North, 4108 East, Rigby, Idaho. Just in communication with what's went on. I love this process. I think it's an amazing thing that we have in our country and our communities. To be able to all speak our mind in a responsible manner. I just wanted to repoint to the commission or to the planning and zoning commissioners that just once again, that it meets the comprehensive plan that the county has for residential growth in our communities. And the staff report, who we pay as a county to guide and direct us in responsible growth in our community, has recommended to approve this application of the zone change on this particular parcel. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, and that now closes the public hearing. We open up to board discussion.
I've been digging a little bit in the comp plan. Chapter 11. I gotta scroll back to it. On chapter 11. Policy 4. Encourage the establishment of expanded water and sewer infrastructure and wastewater treatment areas of city impact. This is definitely not in the city of impact, is that correct? Correct. And then 23. Develop
and implement policies to safeguard and conserve the supply of potable water to meet the needs of current and future county residents. Which that's a big one because we're counting the existing land homeowners that are just living there as well as the ag. And I found it interesting also in, I forget the attorney's name, but, in the zoning in 112, 203, and 204. They both call for both of these zones, the R1 and the R5, to be adjacent to the area of impact. Or in the area of impact.
Sure.
Sure.
I think I'd go with, in chapter 8. The land, the comp plan, you know, land development should focus higher population densities within city impact areas. And I realize that we're not talking about a subdivision, but what we are talking about is a foot in the door and what's coming next. If this is recommended. And where it's not in the area of impact, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. So, you know, the densities. This is definitely gonna be a higher density, yes, 50, 58, whatever, 58 or 60, you know, that's an increased density, there's no doubt about that. So I think it ought to be, you know, that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm gonna go to 812. You know, and this is policy in our comp plan, is agricultural lands in Jefferson County should be protected from encroachment of non-agricultural uses, and this is non-agricultural use. And I do know that, you know. The farmers are becoming outnumbered by the people in the subdivisions. Because these subdivisions seem to be coming, you know, they're way outside of area of impacts for a reason. Because the developers want them out there, because they can pretty much have, you know, get done what they want to get done. Okay. I agree, you know, in listening to testimony, at some point, we've got to stand up and we've got to make sure that we protect this farmland, and I'm pretty familiar with these particular parcels, and it is good farm. It is. And that the other side of that is, you know, that particular road, there's a problem with that road. Say 625, you come off there a quarter mile and then you have to make a 90-degree left-hand turn, and then you gotta make another 90-degree right-hand turn. Okay, this is not just a straight through thoroughfare. Okay, so, you know, there's a hazard. There's a hazard there as well, I believe. As far as potentially developing. Now, the zoning that took place to the west of that took place before I was here, I believe. Okay, and I'm not sure why we just went out in the middle of, you know, a mile or better from that, you know, even city limits, and placed 1/8 lots, you know. So, you know, I can argue that, you know, yeah, there would be, it would be contiguous to an existing R1. But on the other side of it, I think there is a lot more downside to zoning the R1. And even the R five, you know, and that's. That's, there's more open space with the R five than there is in the R one. And you know, we're also tasked in the comp plan, you know, to protect open spaces. Farms are open spaces. There's not a house every acre. I don't. I understand that, everybody involved has property rights. They do. But only to the extent that they don't start infringing upon other property owners. And, you know, we are, you know. Our constitutional right, you know, gives us the right to the economic enjoyment of our property. But it also gives us the aesthetic enjoyment of our property as well. And adding all in whatever, 40, 50, 60 houses, whichever number you want to have, put on there. You know, it is certainly going to cause, there will be light pollution, there will be noise pollution. And I also think that there's when you consider the rezone criteria, you know, it means that if you're going to rezone something, you need to rezone it to a compatible use. And I think if you add 60 houses in there, that is not a compatible use, because just for the simple reason that there will be possibly 60 property owners that don't want to hear a baler at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that don't want to hear a cow, that don't want to have a spray plane flying over top of their house to turn around at 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, I think you have to consider, you know, the subdivision is going to be, to me, it's considered an incompatible use in this instance. Because there, you know, when you look at all the farm ground to the south of it, and you know, granted, more to the east of it, there's not necessarily much farm ground there. A lot of it's swamp, you know, but it's cow pastures too, and there's space there. So I don't think that it meets the. I don't think that it 100% meets the criteria for the reason, based on what I can read from the ordinances. You know, I mean, I've seen it in different places. I've seen it where the housing development moves in next door to the feedlot, and the feedlot's been there for 40 years. And the feedlot goes away because it turns into a mongrel situation in which those 100 people said, this has got to go. And this guy is by himself, but I was here first. Okay. So I think the farm ground was here first. I don't think, I know it was, it's been farms since before I was around, but I am familiar with the area. I grew up there. And there again, I know that we're not talking about a subdivision, but what we are talking about is the gateway to a subdivision. In all respects of this. So I don't know, I'm not. And in taking into account the public input. I mean, that must bear weight. And I realize that we are only making a recommendation to the county commissioners. The county commissioners will have the ultimate say. There's been death on it. But it has fallen upon us to run the public hearing so they know what is coming down the pipe, right? And that's why we are. Covered property, right, you know, quite enjoying, you know, I mean, it's. I live in the middle of nowhere compared to everybody else. And I have one neighbor. And we kind of don't like each other, but we get along. And. But I do, you know, I mean, it's like, I have to listen to the neighbor, I have to listen to the house, but there again, I'm from that. And I am for that. I'm for protecting farmland. Is whether anybody wants to believe it or not, between Jefferson County and counties in western Idaho, there's a lot of farm ground that are just simply disappearing for houses. And most of those people that live in those houses aren't from here. Or there. They're, you know, they're from out of state. And that's one reason why I think that there's an incompatibility issue. Because the people that, if they move into there, they're gonna come from town. And they're going to bring the town mentalities and the town thoughts. And the farmers are the ones that are gonna take the brunt of that. In the form of the complaints and, you know. And whatever, go down the waterway issue, you know, I mean, I realize the state statute allows. 13,000 gallons of water for culinary use and stock water. I got a letter in the mail saying they were curtailing my stock water. Saying, you know, but I'm not sure how they're going to get that done because state statute says I can do that. So that, you know, that's why the subdivisions continue to go on. Because number one, nobody will say no. This is not a good place to put it. This is not a good place for subdivision, you know, and I know we're not talking about, but we have to talk about it. It's no different than the very next thing on the agenda. You have to talk about the whole picture to make a rational decision as to whether or not how you're going to recommend them to me. So, those are my thoughts.
I would agree. I'm having a hard time with policy 812, comprehensive plan, 112-8, 112-60, 112-203, and 112-201. Those are my sections, and I can't find anything that moves the needle for me. Those five are pretty clear.
Lacey, which ones did you have? 112?
112-60, 112-58, 112-203, 112-204. So the 203 and the 204 are the rezone to the R1 and the R5.
Yeah. Be adjacent to.
Yep.
You found
Yeah,
50.
and yeah, 58 and 60, 112-58.
58.
Yeah, 58 and 60, and then policy 812 in the comp plan.
Could you read 112-58 for me?
Oh, that's having to do with the site map.
Yeah, so a detailed site map showing all existing improvements of the property and utilities and significant observations within the area proposed for zone change. Unless I'm missing that in the applications. Am I? Or not understood that that's what it was.
Yeah, I thought, sure that 112.
Yeah, that's 112-58, and then 60 is the rezone criteria. And that is, I mean, that says the request is in accordance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. I mean, points us back to that.
In the improvements that you're looking at, just
Okay. So that's improvements that have been done, not improvements that will be done. Is that what that means?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
because we're not talking about future development, because it's not a subdivision.
Yeah.
Just a zone two.
okay, okay. then I mean, I guess we can remove that. Not 112.8, if that's not what that means. But 60, I think, is still applicable. 1, 2, 3, 4. That whole section is. I'm having a hard time.
That's the criteria for the rezone.
Yeah, you have to read some criteria.
I'm gonna dig into 112, 204, 203. 204 is requirements for the residential 5 zoning, R5. Use of the zone is appropriate in areas designated by the comprehensive plan as residential. And is adjacent to a city area impact and agricultural zones. Characterized by areas that are small farms, have access to irrigation, and have direct access to maintain county roads. I think for the R5 zoning, access to irrigation, we didn't talk about that too much, always that northern parts that has it. Southern one, I didn't see anything, but we want to talk about that a little bit, think that they could probably fit in that area. When I go to the R1 zone, which is 112.203, use of the zone is appropriate in areas designated by the comprehensive plan as residential and is inside or adjacent to a city area impact, which it isn't. Where a network of roads provide good access to primary transportation routes. We'd like to say yes, except for that dog leg, which is pretty intense. Urban services may not be available immediately, but are capable of being extended or constructed in the area. I think it probably meets that criteria. Except that the city of Roberts has set their area of impact and stopped it where they did. It's close, and maybe if somebody talked to them a while ago, they might have extended it farther, they probably just drew a line and set there. But I don't believe that the R1 zone fits in that area for it, because it's not inside or adjacent to city area impact. And then I don't know that I can be conscious making an argument that the roads heading to the R1 zoning are good access for primary transportation routes, most of it just that dog leg there.
Any further discussion? You two have been really quiet.
No, I haven't, I talked first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with my colleagues as far as just the non-palatability issues and just when you look at this from up above and you really see, you've been around the area a lot, it's just we're just overwhelmed with the city. I just can't even imagine a subdivision of that size, but here again, we're not looking at a subdivision, just the foot to become one. There's just, I got a list of things of why we should and a list of things why we shouldn't, and the list why we shouldn't is definitely longer.
Well, with that being said, I'll make a motion
Recommendation.
for recommendation to deny ZON 26-0004 based on findings of facts and conclusions, citing section 112 of the zoning ordinances, section 112-203 3B and 112-204 3B. And in the comprehensive plan, citing Chapter 8, Section 12. Chapter 11, Section 4, Chapter 11, Section 23. And also back to the zoning ordinances. 112-60 A-1.
I'll second it. We had three. Oh, sorry. 112-16, paragraph 3. Of course, maybe that was just my thoughts, the incompatibility. If you don't want to add that to it,
Which one was?
112-60, paragraph 3. As deals with the incompatibilities. Yes. Did you have that one? Yeah,
Was it on there?
I didn't hear if you read that or
I
not,
didn't hear one, I didn't hear 60.
so I didn't hear. Yeah,
So it. 112-60. 3.
okay, perfect. Paragraph 3. Paragraph 3.
There is a motion. Whatever second.
I will second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor to deny recommendation?
I,
I,
Mr. Arnell, what were you?
Aye.
Motion to deny carries. Okay, moving on. To our next agenda item. Number 2, variance 26-006. Excuse me, 0006. Badger area mapping. Sorry, I just died. Technology. Yeah. Maybe. Badger aerial mapping and surveying is requesting a variance to vary from the width to depth rate of Idaho Code, Chapter 110, Section 110-96 lots. And we'll wait just a minute till everybody gets out and you can hear. Motion for a 5 to 10 minute break.
I would say that.
Motion carried. All in favor?
I,
Motion carries.
This door didn't work when I tried to come back in it, so hopefully it will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, that one is locked, so if you wanna get back in, the ones further down are unlocked.
Oh, she went out too, so I don't know if she knows that either.
No, it's locked, but the other ones are open, so you
Okay.
just have to walk down further.
They called me.
Did I call you?
Greater Rigby.
Today?
No, no.
Yes. Oh, yeah, what happened?
You said you were out there mowing my lawn. I'm going on. You don't even know it. I'm like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh. You guys are 7:45. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're.
Yes, sir. Have a question.
Sure.
So this is the right. So this is the thing.
That's the one.
He's just supposed to person here.
Yeah.
He's supposed to come here.
I don't care about.
He didn't even check out that.
Oh, wow. Other than.
Yeah, I still hear.
It's probably gonna be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Not taking. That's
Oh, cool.
Burns back, are we good to go now? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor to reconvene? It's unanimous. Moving on to variance 26-00006. Badger Aerial Mapping and Surveying is requesting a variance to vary from the width to depth ratio code, chapter 110, section 110-96 lots, and building setbacks, chapter 112, section 112-263, density and dimensional requirements for parcels RP 048 E247201 and RP 04 N38E 247220, located at 245 and 247 North, 3900 East. Both parcels are historically long and narrow with ratios approximately 1 to 10.67 and 1 to 9 respectively. Additionally, following a concurrent boundary line adjustment, the existing barn will remain approximately 5 feet from the adjusted property line, requesting a minimum 5-foot setback variance from the 10-foot R1 minimum. The project contains 15.01 acres in the residential 1 zone in a portion of section 24, township 4 north, range 38 east, Boise Meridian. With that, staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So as the summary described is, the applicant is looking to, request a variance for their depth to width ratio for these two parcels, as well as a setback, variance for, the smaller parcel in regards to a barn, an existing barn being 5 feet from the property line. So where this started was the applicant realized that their property boundary for the longest time thought it went to the fence line due to old surveying going by the section township, realized that their boundary line was a little bit further north from their fence line. And so they reached out to a surveyor to do the boundary line adjustment to extend that boundary. And so by doing so, that's where code requires that if you're changing a property that it has to meet current code. And so part of that was our depth to width ratio for parcels. So if the width of a property is less than 300 feet, then it needs to have a 3.2 to 1 depth to width ratio. And so after the boundary line adjustment, or with this boundary line adjustment, those ratios would be that 1.1 to 10 and 1 to 9. And so that's why they're asking for that variance. Is before they were more narrow. With this boundary line adjustment, it was making it slightly more into compliance, but still out of the code's compliance. And then additionally for that 5-foot setback, before the barn and the house used to be over the property line, but then with this boundary line adjustment, they were able to have those structures be further away from the property. And with it being over an acre in size, it does need that 10-foot minimum setback. And so they were only able, that boundary line moved it to 5. And so they're just asking for that variance to have it be 5 feet as it's been an existing structure. And that the boundary line adjustment was already starting to help with alleviating that setback issue. It just wasn't able to meet that current 10-foot setback. And so this is just kind of showing an overview of those two parcels. The middle one might be a little easier to see the two. So it shows a much larger parcel and then a smaller parcel. Kind of in the bottom right-hand corner. And then on this one, you can kind of see it. We can pull it up on an imagery map later. But there's this little patch of land, and that's what they're adjusting the boundary line to. And so this parcel is getting a little bit bigger, but it still has that ratio issue that they're requesting that variance for. So when reviewing the application for against the criteria, we didn't see any issues with this application not meeting code. It showed that there was a hardship, that that they realized they didn't realize that there was structures over the property line, so they were trying to alleviate that by doing the boundary line adjustment. But then realized that they still had some code that they had to meet, and so, so that was their justification for that hardship. And then, when it comes to public interest, we didn't receive any comment against this application. It's not creating any new lots, it's just adjusting the boundary between two existing and just having, permitting the depth to width ratio and that setback with existing structure, with an existing structure. And then again, with the minimum variance needed, is they did a boundary line to fix it from being over the property line, and so they're just asking to have that 5-foot variance for that existing barn from their new proposed property line, as well as the depth to width ratios. So overall, staff recommends approval for this application, and then depending on the commission's decision whether to motion to approve or deny are those two example motions there. And that's all.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Want the letter?
Oh, yeah, she's the neutral.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll read it in.
In regards to variance 26-0006. I am Del Ray Page, my wife Connie and I own and live at 245 North 3900 East, Rigby, Idaho. We purchased this property from my father, Don Page, 50 years ago. The barns in question were built 60 years ago. We moved in a single wide trailer house, which we lived in until building our current home in 2021. We were issued a building permit for the home without any problem. The barns are still being used. We also had Scott Hancock sign a boundary line adjustment for the boundary between my property and his, leaving the boundary on the fence line. Thank you, Scott. The property at 247 North 3900 East belonged to my parents, Don and Vita Page. They purchased this property from his mother, Glendora Page. She purchased this property from Ed Henry. The boundary lines have always been on the fence lines. This property has been in the Page family for over 100 years. Shouldn't this come under a grandfather clause? Since the passing of our parents, my sister Karen Shorter and I have tried to keep everything legal and in order. We are in hopes that the planning and zoning will grant this variance so that we can move on with our plans. Thank you. Karen Shorter and Del Ray Page.
You have our sign-in sheets.
So. Okay. So this is the one we're talking about. This is the parcel, it's these two parcels here. And so they're adjusting the boundary line on this parcel to fix this, see that structure over the property line? So they're moving this line over to adjust for that. And they're also adding some dimension to this. What it's leaving is it's leaving this parcel with a lot of depth ratio problem, and this one with the depth of width ratio. Depth of width ratio. This one, is our understanding and also mentioned in her letter that it will eventually boundary line adjust for this parcel here. And so this one will eventually go away. Okay. This one will be consumed into this one. And so it'll eventually go away. And so ultimately, the request, right now, the request is for both because they both still exist, but nevertheless, that's what they're trying to adjust for is that. So, and we're dealing with this depth of ratio and the 5-foot setback.
So is that the house that's the farthest, or is that the barn? That's the
This part.
barn, right?
Yeah, it was both, we did verify with both the house and the barn to verify which, if both needed the variance, but it was indeed just the barn that needed the variance. The house needs the setbacks with that boundary line adjustment.
Do the pages want to rebut anything Milton or Jenna has said? Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion, the public hearing portion, open it up to the board discussion.
Yeah, this just looks like they're used the old fence lines and found out later that, oh, they're off a little bit. They're trying to rectify it. And make it as good as they can for the time being. I'm not seeing the problem with it.
Yeah, it feels good to get an easy one.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think if there's, if the hardship is not their own cause, they're asking for the minimum variance. And I don't think there's anything public interest is. There's not negative impact.
I think that it does meet the requirements for granting variance usually. That'd be in section 112-98.
I make a motion to approve. VAR 26-0006. According to the findings of fact and on section 112-98.
There's been a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Albertson seconds. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. What?
No.
Okay, moving on to number 3, variance 26-0007. Rigby 191 LLC is requesting a variance for 30 lots in the Hunter Chase subdivision, ranging from 0.9 to 0.96 acres due to public right-of-way dedication falling short of the 1 acre zoning minimum. This project is located on parcels RP 04N38 E350033 and RP 04N38 E354201 in the residential 1 zone of the total of 187.94 acres in a portion of section 35, township 4 north, range 38 east, Boise Meridian. Staff report.
So what's the question? Yeah, please.
Maybe won't like it, but anyway. So I realize that we're going to have, this is going to run concurrently with the request for the variance and the preliminary plat, correct? But we will need to have a separate vote for the variance and for preliminary plat.
Yes, you would need to have a separate vote. So the question is do you want to hear the variance and then the subdivision, or do you want to hear them together?
I think, to me, we should hear the variance first, because if by chance the variance is denied, then there would be no sense in going forward with the preliminary plat.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but that has been the way that, when the variance has come through with the preliminary plat. If the variance
should happen to not be approved, then would there be sense in hearing approval? I have no concern, that's fine, okay. There you go, so the, just a little bit on the history of the subdivision. The subdivision was originally applied for in 23. It came to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission asked them to go back and provide an NP study and a traffic study. This application came right after we changed the ordinance that no longer required the NP study and the traffic study at the preliminary plat stage. But because of the comments from the public, the P and Z Commission asked them to go back and reconsider or go back and do the NP study and the traffic study and provide that for the preliminary plat review. And so that's what caused it to go back to not quite the drawing board, because their application is still dated for 2023. And that's a really big deal when we get into the discussion on the subdivision, is the application date is still 2023. In doing so, the county has continued to watch the changes that are occurring on 3800 and 3700. And the county is now working to request that all those section line right of ways be expanded to 100 feet, which is 50 feet from center line on both sides of the road. And so what that meant for this development was that they would have to then take those and move those, shorten those lots so they could give that extra right of way to the county. And so in creating that design, they originally had 6 or 7 lots that were below the 1 acre minimum that were 0.9. And you can see on here the number of lots that are 0.9, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. And so the code originally stated that the planning department had the ability to administratively approve a 10% deviation to lot size minimum and to setbacks. We went back through the code a couple months ago and decided that doing those deviations, allowing those deviations without noticing the neighbors was probably not a wise thing. And so when they came back to us and we realized that there were actually 30 parcels that were 0.9 acres, it actually meant that 10% deviation. Instead of approving that administratively, we asked them to apply for a variance because we wanted to be able to let you make that decision instead of us. In the meantime, the board has now since adopted a code that allows for an administrative variance up to 25% of lot size minimum. But that process doesn't require a public hearing, but it still requires notice to the neighbors. We asked the applicant to submit this application here for this variance for these 29, 30, whichever it is, affected lots because of the county's request to widen the right-of-way setbacks on 3700 and 3800 to 50 feet from center line of road. And so that's the purpose of it. There's the aerial, there's the zone map. That's the comp plan map, residential, and this is the zone map R1. Okay, and so this is the development here. And again, we're talking about 3700 on this side, we're talking about 3800 on this side, and this right of way has now been expanded. So that was the request, was to be able to adjust some of these lots that were affected because of this right of way. As I'm highlighted. So those are those are the lots showing. This is, 100 north, right? Yeah, 100 north, 3800, 100 north. And so you can see the expanded right away there as well. And so that's the purpose for that, to that request. So again, it's not necessarily a hardship. They created this was, and again, when we get into the discussion on the preliminary plat, we can talk about some of the other changes that were made. Another one of the requests that was made by the planning commission on that preliminary plat was that these roads be straightened out. If you'll recall, on that preliminary plat originally submitted, these roads kind of went like this. And because they were kind of fun to drive down. And the P and Z commission and the county asked them to straighten those roads. And the county was adamant about it and stuck with it. And so they finally did straighten these roads as requested by the county. So again, more justification for the variance request being at the hands of the county and the justification for the lot size. So the 0.9 acres still meets the intent of the R1 zone. It still allows for septics and wells on those lots. So you know, that's what else do we got? Yeah.
Would you say that again about the setbacks on the less than 1 acre lots?
So I mean, the setbacks are still for setbacks for structures.
Yeah.
Yeah, the setbacks for structures are a little bit different on parcels that are less than
0.9 acre.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still room for structures and all of that. Wells and septics and all that, so, yeah. Yeah, we have subdivisions in the county that are 0.6 acre lots.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just. No, by the half acre lot setbacks or.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's less than an acre, the minimum setback from the property, from the budding property lines is 5 feet, and then from the county road to the center line of it is 65 feet versus 8 feet. If it's more than an acre.
Okay, anything else on the staff report? Would the applicant like to come forward?
Give Archibald, 690 north, 3900 east, represent Rigby 191. I think Milton covered the variance request pretty accurately. If you can pull up that slide, it's the one with all the maps on it. I'll try to.
On yours or mine?
Yeah. You can find that, it's like slide 4. Anyway, while he's finding that, it just shows the different plats that there's 3 different iterations of it. When that's up, just let me know. And it shows the curvy roads, then we straighten it. And all the lots on the perimeter, as he showed, were 1 acre lots. And the county, Road and Bridge, Mike at Road and Bridge asked if they want, well, first straighten the roads, but then they wanted this extra 50 feet to be able to expand that road. All the county roads to do multiple lanes and just for traffic, and that's gonna be a big artery through the county. And so if you look at the first map, that was the original, and then the second one at the top, that shows how we platted and brought it to Mike at Road and Bridge after we straightened the roads. And all the perimeter lots were 1 acre at the time, and then he asked that we grant the county 50 feet more right away. And so we said, yes, we will, but that would make those lots unbuildable because they'll be under 1 acre. We said, well,
we can still build on them with the approval of the county. And so we're gifting the county 50 extra feet. They don't have to buy or try to deal with, you know, a bunch of lot owners to try to acquire that in the future. So I think that's best for the county, best for this subdivision, best for traffic. So we agreed to grant that and hope that, you know, you'll approve the variance because it's good for, I think, the county and for the subdivision. Any questions on that? And just a little bit on the well and septics too, this bottom map, I want it all on one page, so it's a little scrunched, but it shows where the septics and wells will be. And so they'll all fit with the proper separation for the, and we can talk about that more on the subdivision approval, but. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions in reference to the plat, I do have Cody Thompson online, and he said that he'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have as he prepared it.
So where we don't, you can go ahead and go back to your, I don't think there's any questions. So where we don't have these split up on the sign-in sheets, how do we know if they're speaking for the variance or for the subdivision?
Ask.
Okay. Mr. Szymanski, are you here for the variance or the subdivision preliminary plat? Thank you. Mr. Szymanski is neutral. Those that are speaking against, I have Chuck Bean. Are you for the variance or for the?
Both.
Would you like to come forward and speak about the variance?
Right. All this.
Try and keep your testimony towards the variance.
Variance only. All right, my name's Chuck Bain. I live at 3702 East 190 North. In Rigby, just north of that place. As far as the variance goes, I have a really simple solution. That's already a really dense subdivision. Just combine a couple of those lots would be a solution that I would say would be a handy thing. And then the problem goes away. Looking at my notes here. I suggest that the lots be resized in such a way that the variance is not necessary. And I'd like to see them utilize the water, but like I say, that's for the other thing. If it can, it sounds like the county is looking at widening that road, which is a wise decision. Because that area is already way overloaded. And additionally, with the development of trellis business on County Line and 3800, that's gonna make it even worse. There's a subdivision on 3700, that's in our ranches. They'll be utilizing the 3700 at least. And then there's also the place in the old Clayton place on 3800 and 200 that is in the process of being built. So there's gonna be a lot of traffic there. So it's a good idea that I think we're thinking ahead and planning on widening that road. So I suggest that the developer consider being a good steward and a good neighbor and maybe making those lot sizes a little bit different and the variance problem goes away. Pretty much what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Julie Hoffman, are you for variance or for the plat? Okay. Steve Stringham?
Flat.
Amber Kent?
Both.
Both, please come forward.
My name is Amber Kent. I live 3745 East 25, 3745 East 35. I am speaking against the variance application.
for a couple of reasons. One, as stated by the gentleman just before me, it seems like the easier solution and, the more reasonable solution would be to make a couple of lots bigger rather than some small lots. My concern is, one, how will that comply with the new, Idaho watering ordinances and laws for 1 acre lots for similar, and two, he clearly stated that they gifted the property to the county in hopes to get them. I feel like that's a little bit of bribery or something, but anyways, I feel like, there's a better solution than to making smaller lots, with an already overpopulated area for infrastructure.
Thank you. Katie Binion? Flat, okay. And Jerry Matthews?
Well,
Okay.
Jerry Matthews, 78 North, 3700 East, Rigby, Idaho. I guess my comments on this are simply, I own a farm that's just right next door to this one. And if you're gonna create a variance for 30 lots on this one, if I go to subdivide, I want the same variance. And I think everybody in the area is going to say the same thing. We're gonna require you to give us the same variance. Is that correct or not? For us to assume that? Currently, I'm not planning to subdivide, I'll be honest with you there. But if the law says we should have an R1 zone should be a minimum of 1 acre lots, I personally feel that the minimum should be 1 acre lots. And if the county is wanting to, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we own to the center of the road, right? My property goes right to the center of the road. The county has the right of way across that property, but my property goes to the center of the road. So these 0.9 acre lots and whatnot that are being made are basically being made smaller within the subdivision. It's not really being made smaller because of the road right of way. The other thing that I'd like to say on this is it's very important for the Planning and Zoning Commission to ensure that this is the way you want it before it goes to the county commissioners. Because if you send this on to the county commissioners, there's a good chance that anything that you asked for will just either get pushed off or, you know, it'll get rubber stamped through. So we all know what happens there. And so I think it's extremely important for you guys to make it be how you want it to be the first time. And then if that takes another public hearing to make this happen, another plat map to make this happen, so be it. Get it right. And I know you guys all want it to be right. That's why you're here tonight. That's why I'm here tonight. I believe that this subdivision is gonna go in. It's just dotting the i's, crossing the t's, making sure everything is correct. And I'm a personal believer in that if the R1 zone says 1 acre minimum, that's what we all should be held to. It's not 0.9 acre minimum, it's 1 acre minimum. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak against the variance? No? So they were all on the first sheet as well.
Oh.
So that's why I asked that question. All right, would the applicant like to rebut anything?
I would just like to point out a couple things on the application. So when we applied and the date of the application is important, the county did not have the new traffic rules in place that they want to have. Instead of a 60-foot right of way for the road, now they want an additional they want 100 feet now. And so the plat up there, the second plat shows that 60-foot right of way. And so according to the rules that were in place when we applied for the subdivision, that's all that's required of us to provide for the county, 60-foot right of way. And that's what's already there. So the county's asking for additional space, that didn't exist at the time of application. So we're, willing to give that extra footage because we think it's best for the county. And so it actually is encroaching on what our property should be. And we're willing to let that be for a future road. So I think that was inaccurate, we could go back to the plat up there that's has all 1 acre lots if you like, and then the county would have to buy, frontage from each parcel if, it went that way. So I think this is just a good, reasonable thing to do. That's it.
I mean, was it clear that when you take, when they dedicate the right of way, the right of way is no longer inside those lots. So these properties won't own to the center line of the road. While the lot may go to the center line of the road right now, once we dedicate that road to the public, the property line moves back to the edge of the right of way. So that's what's making it 0.9, right? I mean, if he left the property lines out there in the middle of the road, they would definitely be larger than 1 acre. And so it's that moving it back that makes it that 0.9. The right of way is not inside the lot anymore. So where it is right now, it won't be in the future. The county will own that road. And that's what he's talking about. So when the county, and that's the challenge we're having on Highway 48 is, we're gonna spend $30 million on right of way to buy the right of way to widen 48 to 4-lane road. So that's what the county's trying to prevent here.
So jumping ahead just a little bit, I guess I have a question. With the subdivision going forward, are there gonna be covenants?
Yep.
And will it state on these lots that they only can go so far, so we don't have placewets and fences and irrigation systems within that easement now? So they don't have to be removed in the future?
Right, yeah, they won't even own the property. It'll be the county. It'll be deeded to the county, so.
From the
those are
start,
property
even,
lines,
okay.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you. That does close our public hearing portion of this variance. Board thoughts?
Kind of hard working on something that's applying for codes a few years ago. Milton, just a question. Could he have not included the widened roads in this plat that he's gonna be proposing next? And not have to worry about this variance? Is this variance solely because he's trying to work with the updated hopes of the county?
I mean, I'm not an attorney, and so, the application was submitted prior to those codes being adopted. And so he is vested in the old code. And so that would be an interesting discussion for attorneys and ultimately the board making the final decision on the approval of that plan. Yes.
Cause it kind of seems to me that him making that adjustment, which is requiring this hearing, is not required. But he's wanting to work with the county because he knows they're gonna come after it anyway, may as well write it out. Is that a fair statement? Yep.
But when the code was changed, is it determined in the code that unless significant improvement like power and gas lines or whatever have not been put in, that they had to come to the new code?
So the new code was just adopted May 6th or 9th or something, the new road ordinance. Was
I thought the new road, I say the new road ordinance, but it was in the subdivision ordinance.
The subdivision ordinance says that they had to do the traffic study in the NP. This has not ever been approved. Yes, right. And so when we get to the plat, we'll talk about those things.
Yeah.
Here. Am I not catching what you're asking? No worries.
My biggest thing up here is that the hardship is not self-imposed. And I understand that it's, you know, because of the road change, but there is a workaround. I understand that it's not a desirable one, but, so in 11298. I don't think the property has exceptional or extraordinary physical characteristics. And I am having a hard time just that believing that the hardship is not self-imposed. Or is it necessary for the preservation of property rights? I just don't. Am I reading the right, that's the right variance granting criteria, right?
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
What are you allowed as a staff to approve in office without coming to the board?
We were allowed to approve a 10% deviation, which we technically had approved the deviation for the 7 or 9 lots that were originally proposed. We had approved that administratively, but when this came back and we saw the 30, I decided that maybe it would be better if we did it here instead of in my office. And again, this is kind of a challenging conundrum because technically they are vested in that original application, in the codes that were there. So what you would end up with is if we went back and they decided that they were gonna just go back to the 60-foot right of way, the 30-foot right of way, you would end up with that plat and a recommendation from the Road and Bridge Department asking for 50 feet. We'd be right back where we were. Because Road and Bridge is gonna ask for that 50-foot right of way, because we all know that it needs to be addressed. To ask them to go back and redraw this plat, it's basically asking them to completely start over. So all the money invested in this, there's a financial hardship, and he should be saying that.
Sorry, we're not allowed to talk about the financial hardship.
Yeah, I know we're not,
But I understand what you're saying, but on the other side of that, this is,
and I don't
creating
create
29 legal non-conforming ones.
And then that's.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is.
It's a hard one because
It is. I get that.
have 1,000 of them.
Because when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, with some of them are gonna be 9/10 of an acre, some are gonna be 0.96. But it's all a matter of square foot reduction, and we have the 1 acre in place so that there is room for the drain field replacement when the drain field ultimately dies. You know what I mean? That's why we have the 1 acre. And not to mention the fact that it seems like every 1 acre subdivision, everybody's building shops now. And so, I don't know, it is a conundrum in that we are, creating non-conforming lots.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, every month we've had like a variance or a shop or property setback. I think that moving forward with these things is we're just asking for more of that. I have a question on, in 2023, were the variances the same rule or have those changed too?
They've changed also.
It's changed some. We allow the exception.
But
Reduction.
I mean, the
But
one.
it's irrelevant because I don't know that they were requesting them back
Oh,
in that original.
okay, so if they,
There were 8.
This is what
7 or
we're
8.
dealing with.
okay,
There was still, there's always been the 4 bases. There's that you have.
Yeah, the
So that
criteria is
doesn't
still
matter.
the same.
Criteria.
Yeah, the criteria is still the same. So however you're gonna go forward with it, you just need to go forward with it. So. Like I said, I don't have it either way. I just, causing you to be careful how you justify it because, there's lots of 0.6, 0.5, 0.3 acre lots out there right now.
Yeah.
So just,
Yeah,
just cause.
yes, there are.
Yeah, I'm just,
They have all, the ones that are in play have been built on, what came into after the variance, so they're planted here and there. And I realize that there are some 16 acre lots and subdivisions. But not all of those are our fault.
oh, I'm not saying they.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm just clarifying that, you know, originally. a Couple different subdivisions, we're supposed to be 1 acre, and they came in after the fact. Because there was going to be a change, roll the dice, we got 6/10. Great. You know, and that's. Them. And I realized, you know,
And this is this, and it doesn't set a precedent either, right?
well, no, other than it's gonna possibly create 29 variances down the road. Because of the setbacks and, you know, some of these lots are gonna lose 4,000 square feet, some of them are gonna lose 2,000 square feet. You know, it's going to vary. And. So that, you know, that's the question that I have is that. I realize. Well, according to legal, we're not supposed to create.
I sort of view this more as the county creating hardship.
Lots of this, yeah, I can address that as well, as it's like. Most all of the subdivisions that have gone in. Oh, yeah, we'll do this, oh, yeah, we'll do that, we will widen this road, we will put in the turn lane, blah, 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 blah. Never happens. I mean, to their credit, they are saying, okay, we're gonna give up 50 feet. And this is gonna create those lots. And, to me, there shouldn't be another thing built on that road until that intersection is resolved. For sure, not another subdivision. Even though the commercial subdivision for them was approved. Of course, other ones didn't, but. You know, when it comes down to it, until that intersection at the end of what is 3,800. Is remedied in a substantial way. There should be no more building.
Couldn't the right of ways be taken through eminent domain? Or not the eminent, taking it for the.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds scary.
It's still expensive.
Oh, okay.
It's good for fun election. It's good but he like that too.
Milton, what's the reason that, tell me again, what triggered you wanting to bring this before a hearing instead of, using the administrative exemption?
Because the variance statutes say that those directly affected have the opportunity to be burned. And the administrative exception doesn't allow that. Now, while other counties have that administrative exception, we just kind of erred on the side of, you know, we need to be letting the public aware and give them the opportunity to be heard. The interesting that about that statute is just like I said, if I can get in up here, is that the statute talks about that notice of an opportunity to be heard shall be provided to property owners adjoining the parcel under consideration. Well, we noticed 1,000 feet around the property, and so it's greater than the property owners adjoining the parcel. But it's noticed that an opportunity to be heard, and the administrative exception doesn't really do that. And again, there's lots of counties in the state that have that administrative exception. But it just, you know, we've just done this. I've just done this for so many years, and it's not good to just take that on
Well, there's a
myself.
difference between administratively fixing one lot.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, yeah. We needed to hear from the neighbors, and they're good suggestions. There's definitely nothing wrong with them. They all come with, right, either way we go, there's consequences either way, so. That's why. Bring
Thanks.
you're up.
How kind.
Yeah. Didn't get you.
I still tend to view this on a timeline. Most, when the application was submitted, this wouldn't even be a problem. And it's hard for someone to come in, I mean, there's a reason that the statute is that the rules of the subdivision or any application has to follow is based on the date that it was applied for. Is because people who try to do long-term planning can't long-term plan if the rules are changing on that plan every time. I do. Yeah, I guess that's how I feel. I feel like they planned based on the rules they had. Rules changed just barely into. I mean, I know people think that it's easy just to eliminate those lots, makes a lot of lots bigger, but it actually does take a lot of planning to come up with all those lot sizes and rows and put it together. It can be done. It's obviously it was done once, it can be done again. But I tend to view this, like I said, on a timeline, when it was applied for. They have the right sizes, and then the only difference between the county taking that extra space now versus taking the space now when the application is not yet completed or approved versus if the application was approved a year ago, they're taking it now, the impact would be the same. The only difference would be that it would be the county taking it versus the applicant granting it to the county as if the county were already taking it. Not that makes sense, right? Everybody confused, but I think it's my argument is I see it in the timeline.
So I kind of look at that timeline a little bit differently. This was presented in 2023. They could have represented possibly in 2024, whatever. Things have changed exponentially in 2, 1, 2, even 3 years. So to me, part of it, I think, should matter what's going on today on 3,800. Because you look at the sheer number of new developments, whether commercial or residential, that have gone on 3,800, I think it should be counted towards what's going on today.
I don't disagree with that. I wonder, is it pertinent if the long duration of this project was caused solely by the applicant, or if it was caused by the county constantly wanting to refine it? Is that pertinent?
We don't know, do we?
Well, I mean, it's probably a combination of both. I mean, there's been a lot going on, but nothing this size has come in to the county. We've not approved. I mean, maybe we've approved a 50 lot subdivision in the last 4 years, and that would be the biggest one we've approved. But this is it. This is the biggest one we've had in 4 years. Now, other than that is that 50 lot out in Ryrie. And so, I don't know that we've had a 35 and some others, but that's not, my point is that the application was. I mean, it was back then, and things have changed a lot. For lots of reasons though, not only because of the development, but because of the outcry from the public. Right, but the public has definitely become a lot more aware and involved in this stuff, so. I mean, we're doing a lot of things that we weren't doing 3 years ago. So, greater Rigby area plan. So, all that.
Well, and I think that's what we need to take into consideration. Things have changed.
Yep, they have.
I have a question. When you talk about, like starting over and doing this again. I'm having a hard time understanding the last time that this was done. It looks like it was done, I don't know, maybe in 25. When was the ask or offer to make the roads wider?
So.
Because, the reason that I'm asking that is because when that was asked or requested or offered, I don't know, but why didn't the lots shift, the lot sizes shift then to not ask for 29 variances, right? So I do understand when you say like, it's not exactly fair for them to go back and redo it again.
Either way.
There was an opportunity.
Well, I mean, they already did once, right? See, because you see the curvy roads,
Yeah.
and then you see the 25 version where the roads are now straight.
Straight, yeah.
And so, so they they had to go in and redraw. However long that took them, redraw all those lots in order to straighten those roads. And they fought that as long as they could.
Yeah.
I mean, the county road bridge was just adamant about not allowing it.
Yeah.
And we had meeting after meeting after meeting, and that's what they came back with. And so then they come back with this drawing, they make sure that everybody's happy with it. And they also during this time did the MP study and the traffic study, and they did a bunch of other things that the Planning and Zoning Commission requested them to do. Then they came back in March, hey, we're ready to go. They and so, well, they came back in June of 25 and the water thing came up, or the state.
Yep.
And so they said, hang on a second, let's see what the state's gonna do about water, and we'll make a decision on how we need to move forward based on that.
Yeah.
And so we hung on. Then they came back in March with this version. The county asked them then, we know the problem with the roads is coming, we want the extra right of way. They didn't actually write it into their codes until, like I said, they finally approved it in May. I don't remember the dates. They finally adopted the road standards ordinance sometime in May. And asked because of the things we now know that were going on 3800, they then asked for that extra right of way.
But that's what I'm saying, in
So-
March, when they had it redone to give the extra right of way, there was a choice that was made,
Yeah,
right?
to
Either,
shorten the lots, yeah.
yep, either.
Because that 10% exception was there.
Yep, either do that or come and ask for a variance. So that's where, when, like, I'm looking at the variance rules, that was a choice.
Yeah.
To me,
So-
how I understand it.
So that, well, it was us that said we won't take the administrative exception. They applied for the administrative exception. We said we won't take that because there's 30 lots.
Okay.
And asked them to come here.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they're dealing with, the changing of the office decisions, the changing of the codes, changing of the state statutes. I mean, good grief. It's called development for a reason. And that's the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rich decision.
Is this a recommendation or is this?
This is interesting.
Is this a recommendation or is?
No, this is a decision.
This is a decision.
Yeah, this is a decision of the P and Z Commission.
Mr. Priest, do you have anything to say?
Well, I'm just trying to find that traffic study and date on it, it's.
I'll look at this paper. That's why I asked for papers.
You can't find your paper.
So it looks like it was done in October of 22. Is that correct? The impact study on the traffic?
Yes, I'm sure.
I'm just asking when the impact study was completed. It looks like it was done in September, October of 2022. So there's no real data there for that. Well. Traffic studies.
The plat, yeah.
Yeah.
that's okay.
You pull up the, where the septic systems are all supposed to go on the bottom left, your chip slide. This is that bottom.
Down here. It's not a touch.
So is this, are those recommendations or are those, it's Vincent over at District 7 or what? Who compiled the placement?
The surveyor put that all together.
So this has nothing to do with the district, with the health department.
Well, it just hasn't completed that stage yet. It would definitely be
Part of it next.
well, and but it also becomes part of the file. This isn't the first one that we've done like this. Teton Heights also has a third page or fourth page or six, whatever it is, that shows this exact same thing. So property owners, when they buy, they are notified that that's the septic's in the Lost Grove.
Yeah, you know,
Those locations.
instead of Autumn Heights, there's quite a few subdivisions that I'm just was wondering if it was somebody other than District 7, the health department that.
They haven't completed that stage,
Right.
because we're still in the preliminary plat. I mean, we're still the very.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is that the whole concern with subdivisions these days is the flowing of the waste to the water. When you make the lot smaller, you just, allow the right amount of area for saturation and for the distances from wells. I'm sure it was done in accordance to distances, but, was just wondering how, that is always a concern when it comes to subdivision, especially of this size, especially in that area. Especially since we have a system going in not too far away down the road, that would be low to have that come through there and pick stuff up. It's just tough to do these things, knowing that down the road, if this was ahead of it, you would not be so concerned about it, but.
And I don't know if Wes's point was based on, was it 11296? Talking about when you mentioned the septics and the future possibility for more variances coming from the individual lot owners. With shop setbacks and things because of the septic tank locations and everything else. That in section 11296. B, and I'm not gonna read the whole thing, just the last sentence. If I can get to it, the variance shall not be considered a right or special privilege, but may be granted to an applicant only upon showing of undue hardship because of the characteristics of the site. And that the variance is not in conflict with public interest. So even that one kind of alludes to what you started out with, is this public? Is it gonna conflict with public interest in the future? For the individual lot owners of the 29. We maybe have enough. Well,
But I think what you're getting at is, we'll just say one of these 0.9 acres. And that septic system has to go where it goes, we're gonna see somebody coming in wanting that shop, as was mentioned, then we're gonna be doing another variance. That's kind of what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not moving, I'm just saying.
Okay, you're alluding more to saying,
You know, I mean, it will come. Sooner or later. But. On some of the lots, it's minimal. It's 1,000 square feet, and 12 of the lots, it's 4,000 square feet.
and that's been the size of some of the shops that we've had these variances on.
Accessory dwelling.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, I don't know. And that's the reason why we have the 1 acre. So that there's room for a business, accessory dwelling, there's room for. The drain field replacement, to make measurements work from the wells. To where the new drain field may be in. One of the well areas, where the well goes in, makes a big difference. And I understand what is at play. Because on one side, I'm like. Hey, we'll have the right of way already to. To widen the road. You know, but. At what cost? And then at a cost just because we don't want to have it redrawn. Which is not our concern. And I realize that everybody's. People have invested money. It doesn't come cheap. None of that stuff, not creating fight, it's not come cheap. But that's not supposed to be in our consideration, especially this thing. Granting variance. Weighed out, considered.
where you showed the comments on the screen.
The only comment that I have is. In reference to this, are you talking or?
Yeah, do they write any comments?
No, the only comment I have is from Cody Thompson. There was reference to the septic system size, that's it.
I'll make a motion to deny variance. 260007. Looking at section 11298. We don't think, number 2, undue hardship exists because of the characteristics of the site. And that the hardship is not self-imposed. That the variance will be in conflict with public interest. Or that the variance would be preserving the property rights of the applicant.
There has been a motion.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to deny variance VAR 26-0007. All in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
4 ayes, 1 nay. Motion is carried to deny.
Mr. Chairman, can I explain
Yes, sir.
one more thing?
Please.
Just a minute, my technology turned on here. Here's back. Just want to be clear for the record. You know, I still view this as a subdivision that was designed under the standard which was applied for. I know there's a lot of murky water that from times past. The general standards, section 112-281. Item B says if an existing lot is divided by a county road that is maintained by the county, the minimum lot size for that portion may be less than the minimum required for the zoning district. Like, I know it's murky. I tend to view this subdivision as if it were built using the rules at the time that it was applied for. And that after that time frame, the county came in and essentially put a road at the edge of the subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. So what happens next now with the next agenda item?
Well, there's nothing to hear,
Okay.
because,
Okay. So at this point, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
so. Yeah, probably gotta make a decision.
Oh, on,
Whether we're tabling or not, or
No, I mean, I realize that the motion failed. But I still, they need, or excuse me. It's denied. Ranch was denied. But. The applicant needs to know that they still can appeal.
Sure.
Yep.
appeal to the Board of Commissioners.
But by the same token. It could be redrawn. The variance would not be required. Yep. Yeah, in order, so the options. Yep. So that they have understood their options. Yeah, we should put that in the decision order. That's fair. Yeah, the options are to appeal the decision to the board or redraw the plat as indicated. And then as far as the subdivision goes, up to you if you want to table it until such time that that's addressed. I would make a motion to table the preliminary plat for interstate subdivision until such time as decision has been made on whether or not they choose to appeal or whether they choose to redraw that sub -22 -12-01. I mean, I realize this has been lengthy, it's drawn out. I understand things have changed. But you still have to come back down to, did it meet all of the variants? I don't know, I don't think it did. But on the other side of that, it's creating non-conforming lots, and I think we have to be very careful about doing it. That's what that variance will do, is create 29 non-conforming lots.
So we do have a motion to table, is that correct?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to table SUB -22 -12-01. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Date uncertain. Yeah, date uncertain,
To date uncertain.
regarding what their decisions are. Yeah. So everybody will get a letter if it goes back to the agenda.
Now,
Make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Now that you're
Thank
adjourned,
you.
can I ask a question?
Ask Milton.